All right, so we just finished up talking about the Spanish in the Americas, but at the same time, there was other countries in Europe that also wanted to join in on the fun and try to be as successful as the Spanish were in most of South America, Central America. England, France, and Netherlands wanted in on the action, and so essentially they ignore the Treaty of Tordesillas. Remember, the Treaty of Tordesillas is when the Pope split the world in half between the Portuguese and the Spanish, saying the Spanish could have everything to the west of the line, while the Portuguese could have everything to the east of the line. Obviously, not very egalitarian. One of their main goals, the English, the French, and the Dutch, was to find a northwest passage to the Pacific Ocean. So it's this idea that there would be a shorter route to Asia, which could make it more profitable than going all the way around the southern tip of Africa or the southern tip of South America. Unfortunately, because of ice, because of how cold it is, they never find a route. Instead, they decide to establish some colonies in North America. So New France, France was one of the first ones to kind of start establishing some colonies and having permanent settlements in the New World for the French or the English or the Dutch. But in 1524, Giovanni de Verrazzano, who's actually an Italian, who's sailing for the French, you'll see this happening over and over again, that Europeans, it doesn't really matter what country they are from, they'll sail for anybody who will finance their trips. Anyway, he discovers the New York harbor. Jacques Cartier in 1534 discovers the St. Lawrence River, which he followed up the river, and he establishes the city of Montreal. Then Samuel de Champlain, he founds Quebec, which makes it the base of New France. And you can see on the map here that Quebec's a little bit further up the river than Montreal. But these are going to be the main cities of the French New France. From that spot, the French explored a lot of the interior. You can see on the map over here, the blue represents the French and what they explored. They went up from the St. Lawrence River and explored all the way down throughout the Mississippi Valley. Okay, so Jacques Marquette, you might have heard of him from the university, and Louis Jolly was a trader. They explored the Great Lakes and upper Mississippi region, so around here. Then Sieur de La Salle, he explored the lower Mississippi, so he went all the way down the Mississippi River, which is one of the largest rivers in the world. And he claimed this whole valley, all this territory for France, and he names it Louisiana, after, obviously, Louis XVI and the Sun King. Essentially, the French established a trading empire. It's huge land, as you can see, but it's very sparsely populated. There's really not that many French there. There's not that many Native Americans there. As you can see, in 1760, the population was only 65,000 in that huge territory. For the most part, they're fur traders, and they're less interested in establishing colonies. So mostly these are lonely men that are over there. They're not families. On the other hand, the English established colonies in a different way. In 1606, London investors get a charter from King James to establish a colony in North America. They leave England with 3 ships and about 100 settlers, and they land in Virginia and establish what is known as Jamestown. Jamestown struggles. They want gold. They don't find any gold. Virginia is not known for their gold. And 7 out of every 10 settlers actually die from hunger, disease, or war with the Native Americans. But it does eventually prosper, and it becomes England's first permanent settlement. And instead of focusing on gold, they actually find out that they can grow tobacco there very cheaply and very well, and it becomes their cash crop in order to fund their excursions. In addition to Jamestown, the Puritans in England also were trying to escape religious persecution in England and decided to come to the Americas. So in 1620, the Pilgrims founded Plymouth in what is today Massachusetts, so quite further up north than Jamestown itself. So they're looking for a land where they won't be persecuted because of their religion. They also struggled to establish a colony, but they do better in Jamestown because they brought a whole families that could reproduce. When Jamestown went, it was mostly men, and so once someone died, there was nobody else replacing them. The Puritans really influenced the United States policy on freedom of religion. Religious groups came to the Americas so that they could practice their religion freely, and this ends up being part of or adopted by the U.S. Constitution. The Dutch also explored parts of North America. They followed in the footsteps of the French and English explorers. In 1609, Henry Hudson, who once again, he's an Englishman, but he's sailing for the Dutch, searches and finds this area. Once again, he's searching for that Northwest Sea passage to Asia, but never finds the route. But he explored 3 waterways: the Hudson River, the Bay, Hudson Bay, and Hudson Strait. And along these waterways, the Dutch claim land. And they don't settle to the extent of the English. They actually just do fur trading with the Iroquois Indians, and they form the Dutch West Indies Company. But they're slow at colonization, and they ask pretty much anybody from Europe if they want to join in their colonizations. In addition to North America, the Caribbean also got colonized significantly. During the 1600s, nations in Europe also colonized the Caribbean. The French colonized Haiti, Guadeloupe, Martinique. The English got Barbados and Jamaica. The Dutch and the Netherlands, the Antilles and Aruba, which they stole from Spain. And pretty much on these Caribbean territories, they built large cotton and or sugar plantations. And these things need a lot of work. And so this will eventually lead to the importation of slaves. But as you can see, these are some Caribbean countries. This is actually Guyana down here, but you can see the Dutch influence in that territory. Here's a map. You can see obviously Spain is dominating most territory, but you can see the small islands that are being eaten up by the European powers. So these 3 countries, England, France, and Netherlands, actually battle each other for colonial supremacy in the New World in North America. First, the English and the Dutch fight. New Netherlands separates the English northern and southern colonies. Remember that they established colonies in Virginia first, and then Massachusetts, and right in between there's New York, where the Dutch settled New Netherlands. In 1664, Charles II, who was the English king, gave permission to the colonists, the English colonists, to drive out the Dutch. So the English do that. They capture New Netherlands without fighting a shot. And New Amsterdam, which is what New York is today, was renamed as New York. You can see a map here of this would be Manhattan Island way back when. Even a bigger war happens when England wants more land and it wants to spread west. If you can remember that that first map of the French and how they explored the interior, they had most of the interior of the United States and of Canada. And this set kind of a collision course between French and English colonists. In 1754, there's a dispute in the Ohio Valley, which actually leads to war. It's called the French and Indian War. It's also called the 7 Years' War. And this is where the British and French and Allies fought for supremacy in Europe, West Indies, and India. This is kind of considered one of the first world wars because there's fighting not only in Europe, but in the Americas. There's also fighting in Asia. So these European countries are fighting all over the world. In 1763, the British colonists and army actually conquered the French. And as a result, the British controlled the entire eastern half of North America. We're actually not going to watch The Last of the Mohicans, but if you have time, you should check it out because it has to do with this 7 Years' War. Here's a map, as you can see, in 1754, how much territory the French controlled. But after that 7 Years' War, the English took over all that territory, and eventually the English will push out the Spanish as well. As you can see, kind of the Rio Grande sets the limit of Texas and what will become the modern-day United States.